Welcome back to Believers IAS Academy, and in this today's species in news, we are discussing two important species. The first one is the international red, or let's say the red panda, because of the recently observed International Red Panda Day, right? So, what is the context? It is because of the recent observation of the Red Panda Day, which generally gets celebrated on third Saturday of every September, right? So there's no specific date. So this becomes important as a fact that every year, third Saturday of September is observed as World or let's say International Red Panda Day, and this is the day which is dedicated to spread awareness about the endangered red panda and also to make sure that the strengthening of the conservation efforts is carried out worldwide. Now let's try and understand about the red panda, the specifications now for the examination point of view. So it is also known as firefox, lesser panda, or even red cat bear. So this is what we are discussing about. And talking about its habitat, it is native to Himalayas, especially the Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, North Bengal, even Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, including the northern Myanmar region. And also, it is part of the native to China's Sichuan and also Yunnan provinces, right? So it is not native just to India, but also to China. So this is also important. And the next point talks about the geographical separation of two distinct species of the red panda. In fact, it's the same panda, but because of the geographical separation, the natural geographical separation which is happening because of the Brahmaputra river, due to the great bend of the Brahmaputra river, a naturally geographically separated border creates two different names. One is it is called the Himalayan red panda, which is on the one side of the Brahmaputra river, and on the other side of the river, or let's say the Chinese part, it is called as the Chinese red panda. So it has two different names depending on where it is located geographically. And talking about its location, right, it is usually found in high altitude regions, which is around 2200 to 4800 meters, in mixed deciduous and coniferous forests, mostly with bamboo understory. And talking about the cultural and ecological importance, it is also the state animal of Sikkim, and it was declared way back in 1990s. And also, it is served as the mascot of Darjeeling Tea Festival. Right, these are all some of the important facts that you have to keep in mind. Of course, you'll have to memorize them. There's no concept involved in this. And talking about the ecological role of the species, since it mostly feeds or depends on the bamboo cultivation, it is very vital and a key indicator for the ecological representation of the bamboo species, right? And also it mostly kind of plays a very important role in defining the ecosystem mostly concerned with the bamboo dependent other species also, right? And talking about its diet, the red panda diet, it includes plants and also some of the small animals. And another fascinating feature is that it undergoes torpor or also hibernation. So basically this is that part in any animals, or let's say a particular kind of animals, especially we even see this hibernation in bears as well, right? Say though usually bears go for hibernation, deep hibernation, usually during the winters, right? Sorry, the autumn season. And these red pandas, they go hibernation during the winter. So basically, what is hibernation? It is that state of that particular animal where the metabolic rate is absolutely less, right? Basically, in simple words, they sleep the entire winter, right, to try and save the energy. And what are the reasons? Many reasons. One is the lack of food, right? The lack of prey that they usually depend on, right? And also to escape the harsh weather conditions, right? And also it is pretty much like rejuvenating themselves for the next season, right, coming back, right? And basically, biologically speaking, it is the reduced metabolic rate of any organism, and usually this goes for months, right? So basically, even these red panda, they go hibernation. The word is torpor, usually in the winter. And the bears, they during the autumn, and that's some of the important things you have to keep in mind. Now, talking about the protection status, they are classified as endangered as per the IUCN Red List, and in terms of sites, they fall under the Appendix 1, and in terms of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, they fall under the category of Schedule 1. And in India, the Padmaja Naidu Himalayan Zoological Park, which is situated in Darjeeling, initially started the captive breeding program in 1990s. So that is also important. So the Padmaja Naidu Himalayan Zoological Park, which is in Darjeeling, pretty much focuses on the conservation efforts of this particular species. And talking about the threats, one is habitat destruction, poaching, illegal pet trade, pressure from linear infrastructure projects, right? This pretty much destroys their habitat, and also food competition with livestock and wild species, right? And inbreeding in fragmented populations, because of the population is very less. Mostly, the inbreeding reduces the lineage of this red panda, and cases of illegal trafficking, which is pretty much reported in Singalila and Neora Valley National Parks, right? So these are some of the reasons for the destruction of this particular species. Now we will solve one prelims question. Consider the following statements regarding red panda. The Great Bend of the Brahmaputra divides the species into Himalayan red panda and the Chinese red panda. It is listed under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The red panda is primarily carnivorous and depends on small animals for survival. Which of the statements are correct? Now coming to the next species, Himalayan musk deer, very important. You know how important deers are at the UPSC examination, especially considering all the PYQs that we have analyzed. So Himalayan musk deer also is important because of some of the very unique features or specifications or qualities this particular the deer species has. So let's look what that is. So now, even before that, why is it in use? Because the Central Zoo Authority has recently reported that there is no such recognized zoo in India which is currently housing, or let's say which currently houses captive Himalayan musk deer, which highlights the absence of an active breeding program despite the launch of Himalayan musk project, which means in India currently there are no active breeding livestock of this particular species which can ensure its generation, or let's say species generation, or which ensures the further continuation of this particular species. So basically there was a project, in fact that particular breeding program was launched way back in 1982, right, under the Himalayan musk project, but still currently in India no particular zoo, there is no recognized zoo in India which is currently having any captive Himalayan musk deer, which mostly talks about how worse of a situation or how endangered or extinct or how near to extinct that this species can become if conservation efforts are not taken place at the right time, is why this was in news. Anyway, we will talk about the key facts of this particular species. Talking about its habitat, it is found in the alpine zones above 2500 meter across the Indian Himalayas, Nepal, Bhutan and even China. And talking about the appearance, this is very important because unlike other other deer species, right, they are very unique. There are a few important facts that we will discuss. One is the sandy brown color coat of this particular deer species, and it is hair like deer, which means it kind of looks like a wild rabbit, right? Kind of looks like a white rabbit, but also does not is, or let's say altogether a rabbit, but it is kind of different from other deers, which usually normally other normal deers have antlers, right? They have antlers, they have spottings, right? They have a tail, and even the kind of posture that the stance that the deers usually look is quite different. And this one special feature is that one is the coat, hair like deer, and do not possess antlers, yeah, and are unique among deer for having a gallbladder. So unlike other deers which usually doesn't have a gallbladder, right? What is the use of gallbladder? Basically this is for the production or the secretion of the bile juice, which is very important for the digestion, right? In fact all the mammals, in fact we humans, we have the gallbladder, right, where or which enhances or which promotes the digestion, right? This is a digestive juice. So usually the liver, right, it secretes the bile juice which goes to the gallbladder, from which it goes to the intestine. But usually deers, since they have to digest so many grasses, right, so many herbivorous plants, and requires a very strong digestive system, usually lack this, right, and this bile juice directly gets to the intestine from the liver without even having to go through this gallbladder. But this unique species of deer has a gallbladder, which makes it absolutely important, and no other deer species in the entire world has this gallbladder but this, so it becomes absolutely important. And talking about the conservation status, it is classified as endangered under the IUCN Red List, and in the sites it is classified under Appendix 1. And what are the major threats? Poaching for musk sack, valued in traditional medicine and also perfumery. Simply you have to keep in mind poaching, right? It is used in traditional medicine and perfumery, considering its benefits of its parts, organs, right? All of those things. And talking about the captive breeding program in India, because that is the reason why we are talking about this. And this musk deer breeding center was set up in Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary way back in 1982 with just 5 deers, and over the period of time the population rose to 28 by 2006, after which the facility was eventually shut down. And currently, the last, or let's say the last surviving animals were transferred to the Darjeeling Zoo. And further, due to the lack of conservation, right, lack of the proper implementation of the breeding program which was supposed to happen, we can say that currently India lacks founder stock, which initially the breeding pairs essential to restart captive program. Means the lack of founder stocks means they at least need one proper male and a female. Doesn't mean you have a male and a female of any lineage that you cross them and make offsprings. Absolutely not. So you need a proper male and a proper female, preferably from different lineage, right, so that inbreeding problem doesn't happen. So that's what India is currently lacking, that particular founder stock, which is very much required as initial pairs for breeding and to restart this captive programs. And talking about the behavior of this particular species, it is solitary, sedentary, and crepuscular. Means they are active during dawn and dusk. And talking about the communication, they are very defensive, and there is a special gland in every deer which is called as the caudal gland, and they emit certain scent, right? They spray certain scent from this caudal gland. Caudal gland usually is situated under the tail, right? It is situated right under the tail, and usually this is what is used, it's like a gland which secretes a particular scent, particular smell, which usually is used for communication. Like you have observed how dogs sniff another dog's tail, right? It tries to communicate that way. And in order to defend its territory, another important thing, this particular species of deer, they spray, or let's say they emit a particular scent for marking their territory. And also they are known for bounding gait and can leap up to 6 meters to escape predators. Bounding gait is basically the locomotory feature in terms of how a particular species run or jump. So considering how this is looking like, so usually I hope people have observed or know how a rabbit jumps from one place to another. So usually the front limbs take a leap, right? They lift this, and with all the power which is generated from the hind limbs, right, so they jump, right? So basically this is how the look, this is how it would look. So the front limbs rise, and then all the power is generated from the back limbs, and it can jump. And this is how initially once they jump, they first land from their front limb. So basically simple, you just have to keep in mind that this particular definition here, the bounding gait, essentially means as how they jump using their hind limbs. Okay, simple, just like how a rabbit jumps. No need to worry much about it. And let's solve one prelims question in the end. With reference to the Himalayan musk deer, consider the following statements. Unlike most deer species, it lacks antlers but possesses a gallbladder. It is currently listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Poaching for musk glands is the primary reason for its population decline. Which of the statements given are correct? Use the comment section, leave your answers, and if there is any other species which are in news that you want us to discuss, even that also you can let us know in the comment section. Anyway, that's all for this particular video. Signing off, this is Madan Gopal. Have a great day.